Hi, this is Corral again. Yes, Corral again. We're almost at the new year, and I want to talk about something I haven't talked about before, but I think it's very important, especially when you're looking at Spanish. The difference between the imperfect, or in Espanol, el imperfecto, and the, I guess in English you would call it the simple past tense, or the preterito in Spanish, the preterito. Okay, in general, I don't think the difference is that hard to understand. Number one, when you're talking about the preterito, you normally talk about an action that happened once or that was completed. It began in the past and it was completed in the past. And generally speaking, for example, I talked to my mother last night. You normally, not normally, but many times you use the, what would it be? A word to indicate when the action happened. Last night, yesterday, last year. Okay. And that's not too hard to understand. And even though we don't, in English, have a tense necessarily called the imperfecto, we do have a tense, what would it be? We do have a way of formulating our sentences that represent the imperfecto. The imperfecto would be maybe when we say in English used to, or when we use the past progressive. For example, let me give you the definition in English of the imperfecto in Spanish. The imperfecto is an action that happened either more than one time in the past. Maybe it was even something that was a daily habit in the past. Or it's an action and you're talking about more the time period of that action rather than that action. Let me give you an example. I used to talk to my mother every day. Now that's different in the past than I talked to my mother yesterday. I used to talk to my mother every day, let's say every Friday or every Monday. It was something that I did more than once. It was almost like a schedule. So yo hablaba con mi mamá todos los días, right? Or hablaba con mi mamá todos los viernes, okay? So you're talking about something that was more like a habit in the past. Or you're talking about what you were doing when something else happened. For example, hablaba con mi mamá cuando mi hermana, o cuando llamó por teléfono mi hermana llamó por teléfono. Okay, so you were doing something, and in the process of doing it, that action was interrupted. Now that's the general understanding of the preterito, or the simple past tense in English, and the imperfecto, which would be either the was plus the present participle, the ing, or the used to. But you know it doesn't stop there. It never stops there. Otherwise, languages wouldn't be as complex, wouldn't be as nuanced, and wouldn't be as, well, from my perspective, as fantastic. There are also special verbs in Spanish that the meaning of the verb changes depending on whether the verb is in the imperfecto or whether the verb is in the preterito. Let's look at some of these verbs. Let me tell you, this at one time, you know, I used to live in Mexico. I lived in Mexico for a long time. And before then I was in Colombia. I didn't stay in Colombia that long, but in Mexico I stayed there for a long time. I really liked Mexico. I love Mexico. Still do. Okay, I would hear people using tenses because my ear became very attuned to what people were saying because I wanted to learn the language. And I said to myself, even though they're using X verb, the way they're using it, the meaning of that verb is not the same. And I knew it, but I couldn't put my finger on it. Okay, especially when you're talking about the subjunctive, subjuntivo. Oh my God. I would listen for that verb tense all the time and then try to understand. But let's just look at the differences here. The verb is saber, right? Now, normally speaking, the word saber means to know. Okay. Now, But there's a difference when you're talking about saber in the preterito and when you're talking about saber in the imperfecto. There's a difference. When you're talking about it in the imperfecto, it means I knew. Sabía que me iba a hacer eso. Okay? Sabía. Entonces no me dio ninguna sorpresa. No sorpresa, excuse me, sorpresa. I'm thinking about surprise. Sorpresa. No me dio ninguna sorpresa. Sabía que me iba a hacer eso. I knew she was going to do that, right? But that's different from supe. Supe, or supiste, or supo, or supimos, or supieron, which is the preterito of the verb saber, doesn't mean the past tense knew. It means to find out. Supe que me hizo, or me lo hizo. I found out that she did it. And in a sense, it makes sense if you look at what the meaning of the preterito is and what the meaning of the imperfecto. The imperfecto talks about more of an action over a very long period of time. So you're worried more about the time than the action. The action is important, but also what's extremely important is the time period over which that action took place. So knowing something is not just something, boom, you know it. It's something over time. I look at it like it's like a cloth being soaked. It doesn't get soaked all at once. Slowly it gets soaked. That's the imperfecto. Where the preterito is an action that, boom, it happened. So what happened? I found out. You know, somebody came in, boom, Carala, tal persona te hizo tal cosa, ya supe. Right? So it makes sense. Now, in our language, we don't look at it that way, but it makes sense. Okay, there's another one. Tener. Now, tener, normally speaking, we normally think of tener as to have. And it does mean to have, normally speaking, right? And in the imperfecto, it means had in the sense that we think of it, you know. I had a car, tenía un coche, right? I had a car, right? So I didn't have that car just for one moment or for one day or for one whatever. I'm talking about a period of time, for a long period of time. But if you say tuve, tuviste, tuvo, tuvieron, tuvimos, tuvieron, now that doesn't mean to have in the sense of had. It doesn't mean had in the sense of possession. It means received or got. Tuve un coche de mi mamá. I received a car from my mother. Okay, or de mi mamá, tuve un coche. So the verb tener in the preterito doesn't mean had. That's the imperfecto. It means received or got. Okay, now let's look at the verb conocer. Conocer means in the preterito to be acquainted with. So, te conocía, right? I used to know you, all right? Or I knew you, right? Conocer in imperfecto. But if you're talking about it in the preterito and it's te conocí anoche, that means I met you for the first time last night. I didn't know you before. I met you. We were at a party, una fiesta, una reunión, no sé. Llegaste a mi casa, pero te conocí anoche. Right? So that means I met you versus conocía, I knew you or I was acquainted with you. Okay. Deber is a little bit more complicated. Deber, when it's an imperfecto, means should be done. You can almost use it the same as you use the present tense, okay? Debo, let's see, debo estar hablando, no, let me see, let me think of an example. I can come back to that, I can think of an example. I can't think of an example right now, but I can come back to it. Okay. All right, so real quick, deber means should be done versus deber, I don't know why I'm getting messed up on this one. Okay, deber in the imperfecto means should be done. Okay, versus debía hablar con mi mamá. Okay. Versus the preterito means should have been done but wasn't done. Okay? So, debí hablar con mi mamá. It should have been done, but it wasn't done. And just the reason I think I got a little bit mixed up there, just imagine the nuance in the día, which should be done, versus debí, should have been done. That's totally different than English. Totally, totally different. Okay, now let's look at querer. Querer means, in the preterito, it means you wanted to do something, but you did not do it. Quise hablar contigo, pero no hablé contigo. So I wanted to talk to you, but for whatever reason, I didn't succeed in doing it. Versus in the imperfecto, you wanted to do something, and what the emphasis is on the fact that you wanted to do it. The emphasis is not on the fact that in a preterito that you did not actually do it. So it's not really known whether you actually did get to talk or not get to talk. So there's a difference between quise hablar con mi mamá versus quería hablar con mi mamá. Quería means I'm talking more about the desire versus the fact that I did or I didn't talk to my mother. Okay. And querer is important because in the negative, querer means refuse for the preterito. So, no quise hablar, I refused to talk to my mother. And in the imperfecto, it just means I didn't want to talk to my mother. Time is running out, so I got to go. But I want to thank you very much. So this is Coralla Ficklin at istudyguides.com. And we're talking about the difference between the preterito and the imperfecto, especially with certain verbs. Thank you.